Thank you, Sanaya. Good morning, everybody. Good to have you here. So, for those of you who were in the audience yesterday and saw Manav, Nikhil Nath, Dr. Titinan, and Chopping Sum, I just want to tell these four gentlemen thank you for stealing my speech. I have nothing additional to add. They literally said everything I was planning to say today. Uh, But that's a good thing too, right? It gives me the reassurance that what we're looking at from an innovation and from a disruption and from a refinement of hospitality standpoint is aligned. That's how the sector at large is thinking of things. So I'm going to, at the risk of being repetitive, share a few thoughts that I think are relevant today. So, four walls, a bed, some fancy in-room decor, and a bathroom. There's been a recurring blame on our sector, on our industry, that we have done very little to reinvent our core offering. Fact is, room configurations over the years have been altered. Cuisines across platforms have been explored. There have been a variety of amenities that our hotels and our brands offer. The question is, are the fundamentals changing, or are we essentially doing the same thing? Really, no matter what the size, scale, location, positioning, price point, branding, essentially, the challenge is that we're being blamed for offering the same thing. Are we? I'm not too sure. The fact is that certain hotels, certain brands, certain companies are indeed pushing boundaries. They are broadening their horizons. There is an augmentation of services taking place across brands, and guest care that is truly discerning is being offered today. Change, innovation, disruption is something that we are beginning to witness in our sector today. I want to start by briefly trying to describe a disruptor. It seems to have a negative connotation. People believe disruptor to be a negative word. See, in my view, simply speaking, a disruptor is somebody who challenges status quo and inertia. It's a thing that will prevent something from continuing as usual. It'll shift paradigms, displace industries, introduce new ways of doing business, as I said here. It is useful and it is scalable. That's key. And what's important to keep in mind is that a disruptor, by pure definition, will simultaneously create and destruct. Here's a few simple and obvious examples. We've all been witness to celebrity chef restaurants over the last 2 decades or so. It was, in its own way, a good migration from the traditional hotel restaurants. They did disrupt the food and beverage sector to a certain degree. The Heavenly Beds by Starwood, or pillow top beds as we call them more generically across hotel brands, were a step in the right direction. There was innovation in that, and that was welcomed by guests. Simple examples, I realize that, but important nonetheless. The rain shower, I think Nikhil spoke about this yesterday. A simple innovation that actually changed the guest consumer experience to a fair degree. Remember those TVs, right? And something as simple as a flat screen television did change and enhance the consumer experience. The fact is that these are entirely product-led differentiators, though. Let's look at, you have these mini bars now that are complementary, and you have a lot of little tidbits that are being offered in the interest of enticing the guest. A good one was really these menus that have come out that let you know about allergens, that let you know about calories. In the interest of health and consciousness, I think more and more restaurants are embracing that thought. Nikhil and Manav both spoke briefly yesterday about paperless check-ins, or the whole idea of check-ins becoming redundant, and really it becoming more about the consumer experience and letting them in the room even without them really meeting an individual if they don't want to. So while I speak about these product-led differentiators, I also want to talk a minute about a few things that, to my mind, are really not differentiators, and some of us at hotel companies like to believe they are. I actually looked this up. Thread count. Now, far as I could understand, bed sheets are made by either single-ply yarn or double-ply yarn. And what really that, without getting technical about it, what I've understood is that on a per square inch, you can go only as high as 400 thread count without moving into double ply. And when you're a double ply yarn bed sheet, you're no longer comfortable. You're no longer luxurious. So a hotel brand claiming I got a 800 thread count, a 1200 thread count, it's deceptive. It's not really luxurious. It's marketing. Pillow menus. To my mind, there's really two choices, foam or feather. And if you're allergic to feather, you prefer a foam pillow. To have an extensive menu of pillows, I think is an overkill sometimes. Uh, More and more hotel brands have tried to make the bathroom experience more like a spa, and that's a great thing for consumers like us. But just a word of caution, right? Not every single guest is a honeymooning couple with you. You've got people sharing rooms. So to have the bathtub in the middle of the bedroom, maybe something you want to offer in your suites, but not just in your base category rooms, right? These things are overkills to my mind. Fact is, the needs essentially are basic. We need power outlets. Manav spoke about this yesterday, by your bedside, by the study table, and these should work when you leave the room. You need internet access that is hopefully complementary and good speed. You need warm showers. You don't need a shower experience that regularly burns you and freezes you in equal measure, right? Simple things. One remote control that does not require a PhD or an engineering degree. Convenience, simplicity, they're prerequisites, they're not differentiators. So the question is, can innovation be simple? Can it be forward-looking? Can technology be an enabler and not a cause of confusion? Of course it can. Here's a few examples, and again, these are product-led examples for now. We're going to move into service in a minute or two. Enough and more has been said about AI already, right? I mean, artificial intelligence is becoming cliche as a word, but it is real. Smart rooms are here to stay. They need to be smart and efficient, and they need to be smart and usable, not smart and confusing. E-concierge, lights and curtains that work by way of motion recognition. You can see more and more of these robotic-related things that are coming into the sector. It's very amply visible. I'm told there's a few restaurants that are now having robotic servers. Interesting stuff. The idea here is that AI can grant more access to the guest. It can significantly reduce operating costs. It can eliminate human error. If done right, it can deliver superior customer service and allow for consumer data analytics. We keep talking about big data and its use. Our sector does I think, a dismal job in collating that data and, more importantly, using it. On the topic of data, the economy in every facet is moving towards this whole shared economy space, right? I mean, we've talked about sharing cabs and sharing rooms and Airbnb and Flipkey. It wasn't something the hotel sector was willing to embrace to begin with. We all know that, right? But Accor is a great example of having picked up one fine stay. Rather than fighting it, they're embracing it. They're saying, let's look at it. Let's see if we can play in this space. There is a lot that's happening from an innovation standpoint in the shared economy space. Let's talk a little bit more about food and beverage. You're familiar with most of these companies today: Uber Eats, Foodpanda, Gojek out of Indonesia, Swiggy. About a decade ago, online ordering kicked in, right? Today we're at a space where you can literally order from hundreds and thousands of restaurants. There is also Easy Diner, Open Table, Dine Out, people who will facilitate and ease and make it convenient for you to go have a meal at any restaurant anywhere in the world you really want to have. Further innovation, I don't know how many of you have heard of Umi. Interesting app. They connect home cooks to you. So somebody will actually come to your house, cook you a cuisine of your preference and your choice, all through an app. I'm going to spend a half a minute on the talent quotient. Human resources are extremely important in our business. New ways where that's changing. RoundPeg, I don't know if any of you have used RoundPeg. They essentially gather a lot of data about a prospective candidate from various platforms, online and offline, and then they run some algorithms and they come up with a score to see how it matches the personality type, the behavioral type, and the general skills required for the job. So it tries to quantify and make it scientific so that you can be a lot more focused on the kind of employees you're hiring. Shrofile is a new way of identifying candidates by way of them uploading videos of themselves and letting you know why they are the right candidate for the job. From an education standpoint, I'm sure most of you have heard of Coursera. That's where education is working, and that's where it's moving. You're seeing Coursera offering courses across platforms, across sectors, across types of material that you want to study. We at Hotelivate are coming up with something called Academy, which is in the same space as well. A little bit about the customer service experience. We spoke about products. We spoke about service in general. The fact is, and this was spoken about multiple times through yesterday and even this morning, experiences is what things are moving towards. We keep hearing millennials want experiences. They yearn for a unique experience. It is a fact. Let's not ignore it. It is experiential led. Today's consumer is thinking in those spaces. The need is not to standardize. In fact, if anything, they're looking to customize. The paradigm shift is that they want to have unique experiences. Why can't a hotel brand embrace the culture and character of a fraternity? Why does it need to be brand standard driven? Why does it need to be cookie cutter? Where is that vibe of spontaneity? Can hotels' products today be social, welcoming, communicative? Can they deliver emotions rather than deliver service or food and stuff like that? Positive community living is not jargon. It is truth. It is really what people are seeking today. They want that embracing environment. They're looking for a world that is moving away from owning and hoarding to sharing and experiencing. Every hotel could tell you a quintessential story. What stops a hotel from being your local neighborhood's laundry shop, fresh bread and produce store, florist, barber, gymnasium, co-working space, arts gallery? I mean, I can give you examples in South Asia where there are hotels that have embraced the thought of portraying and showcasing art. Why can't it be your business center? Why can't it be your neighborhood go-to place for a variety of things? That's really when you will see the hotel is no longer brick and mortar. It is actually an experience provider to the local community, not just the inbound traveler. Andaz was spoken about yesterday by Hyatt. They're trying to do that in some shape or form. I don't know if anybody's doing this entirely, but I know every major brand is experimenting with thoughts in this space. I think it's a welcome process. All right. We spoke about how brands could innovate in product. We spoke about how they can innovate in service. I spoke a little bit about what hotel management companies should do. There's a few owners in the audience. I want to take a minute or two and talk about, from an ownership standpoint, how should you be looking at your product when you build these hotels? Basic mathematics for a minute or two, but I think this is how I like to approach hotel projects, and I would hope many others do too. I took a sample set of 15 upper upscale hotels in a major market, gathered their data, and looked at some very basic stuff. I mean, some of this is known to you. These 15 hotels were producing 63% of their revenue from rooms, to 32% from food and beverage, and 5% from minor operating departments. Most hotel owners and operators know that about themselves. They also know this. They know their average daily rate. They know their average checks. They know their average spend on spa and so forth. In this case, these hotels were averaging $180 US rate, making about 22 bucks in their all-day dining, and about $35 at the specialty restaurant, $60 for an average treatment, and about $25 per person attending their banqueting functions. Again, I know you guys already know this stuff because most hotels track this on a fairly regular tip. So I took this a step further. I took this revenue, I divided that by their floor space index to arrive at what you would call a revenue yield per square foot, right? Cho Peng Sam spoke about this yesterday in the service department space and how yield is important. I further took that yield and multiplied it by their profitability percentage to come up with their income yield per square foot. So far, simple income yield per square foot divided by 12 is your monthly income yield per square foot. What you're doing is really comparing your hotel to other asset classes, an office building, a mall, rental accommodation. You're trying to come up with monthly income per square foot. Now, one may argue that this is a little more difficult for hotels because there's a lot of non-revenue generating spaces. And it would be a folly to simply say that my all-day dining is just so small, but it also is helped by the rooms. Yes, indeed. But what's the goal seek here? Let's look at that. This is what I got. The rooms were generating $9 per square foot per month. While the all-day dining was giving you 15 bucks, the specialty restaurant only $6, the spa 4 bucks, and the banqueting 11. I prorated the unused or the non-revenue generating portions in equal measure to make sure that the hotel is equally looking at those areas as well. More importantly, I compared the space each of these consume versus the income, not the revenue, the income or the profits each of these generate. What was interesting to me was that while rooms took 50% of the space, uh, they provided 63% of the income. So obviously, we know we're in the business of rooms. Uh, they're revenue generating. In this case, 18% of the space was consumed by the specialty restaurants, and they were delivering only 5% of the income. Why do I point this out? Because I would want to ask some of these hotels the question that, are your specialty restaurants there because there is a brand standard, or are they there because there's an audience for it? Clearly, there isn't a big enough audience for it. And maybe there is a big enough audience, and then you're just charging too less. Or maybe you're charging just right, and you're just spending too much. Or maybe you're importing your food. Or maybe you've got high cost of labor. But these are questions you should be asking yourself to make sure that your space is being optimally utilized. Banqueting, interesting. 12% of the space, 12% of the income. Optimal, right? The idea here was to really try and just question yourself from a space and time point of view. It's almost funny to say, I mean, we're really in the same space as Stephen Hawking or Albert Einstein. We're about time and space. Time is finite for us. It expires every single day, and if we don't sell that inventory or that cover on the restaurant, it's not coming back. Space is finite. We do want to make sure that we're consuming that space in the most efficient way possible. And if we're not questioning ourselves constantly, we're not innovating. We're not doing what we should be doing to maximize ourselves as a hotel business. Finally, we're questioning ourselves as well. We want to make sure as a firm, we're not about consistency anymore. Hotel consulting firms, or any consulting firm, have for decades prided themselves about consistency, about processes, about doing things in a structured, organized, and consistent fashion. I don't think that's what the consumers want today, and I don't think that's what the clients and the developers and the brands need. It's about customization. It's about what do you need, and how can I solve that problem? It's not about templates. It's not about my models and boilers are better than yours. It's really about targeted solutions. It's not about processes. It is about problem solving. We are acknowledging that. I think the industry at large is acknowledging that. To us, it's about curated solutions and innovative advisory. At Hotelivate, that's our endeavor. In the sector, I would hope that's the endeavor. We're not just four walls, a bed, a TV, and some fancy decor. Hotels of tomorrow are going to be so much more. Thank you.